Hey, what's up, players? Shikata Ganai here again, and we're going to do another in our series called Pop, 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 another server drop. And today we're going to pop Kenobi. Sounds weird, but it means the VM or try hack me. So I always like to use try hack me if possible to go ahead and do my capture the flags because, well, it's just convenient. It has got a lot of good rooms in it, a lot of good guides that go along with it as well. This particular one's going to be a little bit more difficult than some of the other ones, but we'll learn some good stuff on this one here. So the purpose of my Pop, Pop, Pop series, or as we'd say, Pop, 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 is that I like to go ahead and do the CTFs and not do a normal run through that you would normally see like on YouTube or something like that. The way I like to do is I like to slow it down. I like to describe what I'm doing, the methodology behind it, and also if I run certain commands or whatever, I want to say, okay, this switch is because of this, I'm doing this switch to try to get this particular information out of it. So I explain the commands, I explain the methodology behind it, and I do it per video. So if I repeat myself and you watch all the other series, you'll notice that I actually explain things over and over and over because I'm assuming the user is just watching this one video for the first time and not watching the others in the series. So I want to make sure that they're completely illuminated to what I'm trying to do here. So you'll see me repeat some things here and there, but fairly quickly. All right, so this particular room has been challenging for the fact that I had to restart this room 3 different times to try to get it to actually connect with ping. And once you start doing some SMB scans and things like that, then everything starts bonking out. And then I have to restart it again and try to run the scans again. So it's extremely hit or miss when you're starting doing like enumeration of SMB and NFS for some reason. I'm not sure why. So what I did is I went ahead and I started up a clean again, and I went ahead and ran all the commands ahead of time for the very first portion of this, the enumeration. That way I could know, okay, right off the bat, I know these are going to work, and I don't have to pause the video and screw with it and restart it and all that stuff. I want to do it all in one flow. So I've already done a few of the commands here. Now the Nmap scan I'm running, it goes on forever. Last time I ran this, it went on for 20 minutes. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with that. But either way, I'll kind of explain what I'm doing here. What I would like to do is I would like to do a scan of the machine. And this particular Nmap script or command here, I'll explain in just a second. Let me explain a little bit what Nmap is first. Nmap is a port scanner, and a port would be an entry point into a system, into a computer, right? So let's say I had a web server listening on port 80. That means that port is open, and I'm making a connection to it to actually request the web page to be sent to me. There's 65,535 ports, if you consider 0 to be a number. The first 0 through 1023 are considered what they call well-known ports, things like port 80 for HTTP, port 22 for SSH, that sort of thing. And from 1024 to about, 49,000-ish, those are what they call registered ports. So if a company had a particular application that they want to run on a certain port, they would register it with the company called IANA, and that would be considered that. And then after the 49,000 on up, then it would be what they call dynamic ports, which are created on the fly from the user to whatever service they're going to. So Nmap has the ability to scan ports and probe with certain different files that it uses for comparisons, and it will tell us what's running on there and if the port is open or not, or if it's filtered. In this case, what I'm running for this command is I'm doing Nmap and then TAC-N. When I say TAC, I mean dash. So TAC-N would say disable DNS resolution. It kind of speeds things up, except in this case. But it just says, hey, I don't really need to have DNS being resolved to a name, from the IP address to a name, so don't worry about that. This particular VM also has an issue with ping. So I think they have the server have an ICMP disabled, if I'm not mistaken. So the TAC capital PN will disable pinging because sometimes your scan will come up and say Nmap can't complete the scan or whatever because it's being blocked or whatever. That's typically because of ICMP. Look at that. Whew, finally finished. Let me scroll back up here. So the TAC A, or capital A, is called aggressive mode. It's very noisy, so you wouldn't use it if you wanted to do something stealth-wise. This isn't your Huckleberry. You don't want that one. This one here will do 4 different things. First, it will run a S-V scan, which is a version scan, and that basically does this right here. It says port 21 is open, it is FTP, and the actual exact version that we have found for it is that. Okay, that's what that scan does. Then it runs attack O, which is an operating system scan, so it can say no exact OS matches hosted listed here, but they may try to guess what it is. For instance, down here, Unix, Linux, right? So that's what that one's for. Then the next thing it runs is S-C, which is the default script scan. So Nmap comes with its own scripting ability with the .NSC extension to allow it to kind of extend its abilities to be not just a port scanner, but also be like an exploitation tool. Not in this case, but that's what scripts are for. And they have different categories, like they'll have a vuln category, a safe one, so it's not intrusive, and then there's a default category. So if I want to run all the default scripts that are in the default category, such as this one, such as these two, that's what that scan does. And then lastly, it does a trace route. All right, let's see our output here. So it looks like we have a 21 port right here for FTP, and we have a Pro FTPD right there. Looks like we have SSH open. It's good to know. Port 80 is open. Port 111, this is typically called RPCbind, so RPC services would contact this service on a server to find out and map a number essentially to a particular service. 139 would be considered what they call for SMB ports. This would be SMB over NetBIOS. It's an older way that they used to do it. The more common thing you'll see is 445, which is SMB over TCP. And so that's the one you'll see. Sometimes it may be called CIFS. You may also hear the words Samba, and we're not talking about dancing the Samba. We're talking about interoperability between Linux and Windows, because SMB is only for Windows. And then on Linux, you would have things like NFS or something to that effect. Samba allows interoperability between the two different OSs when it comes to this file sharing protocol. Then we have some other one down here. I don't know what that one is, some sort of unfiltered one. We have an NFS one here. So it looks like we're doing a lot with SMB and NFS in this particular one. All right, looks like we got SMB services, OS discoveries. This is important to note as well, the SMB version, because there was a well-known one for WannaCry ransomware called Eternal Blue. And that leveraged an exploit against SMB version 1. All right, so let's go back to the Try Hack Me and let's see what they want from us here. So it looks like we're going to be covering access on a Samba share, manipulating a vulnerable version of Pro FTPD, and to gain initial access, and then escalate our privileges with a SUID binary. Very cool. All right, let's go ahead and take a peek here. All right, so there's the Samba, there's the ports. Looks like they give us some scripts. By the way, what I run here is my own version of things that's called Dratus Community Edition, and I utilize their methodologies. I'm going to do a video on how to set this up because I love this, because this is my little cheat sheet. So if, for instance, if I need to do a UDP scan and I forget what command I want to use, or I just want to copy and paste, I click on that, boom, there it is, right? So on this one, I'm going to be utilizing, I guess, SMB, it sounds like. So let me pop that bad boy up there. All right, so like say, okay, so this one here, for instance, won't run because it will show the error about the ping thing. So you actually have to add a capital P, small case N to this one here, but we'll get to that in a second. So it says here, using the command above, this one here, how many shares have been found? So let's take a look at this script. So it's querying or doing a port scan on port 445, which you described as being SMB over TCP. Sometimes they'll call it CIFS. And then here we're seeing that we're calling a script. And this one here, we're doing an SMB enumeration of the shares. And then SMB enum users. The one I'm really concerned with is this one right here, SMB enum shares. So after fiddling with this for a while and the machine having to be rebooted and all this other stuff, I decided to screw all this command and just go with this one here, okay? So that one is right here. So I did the nmap, tac n, tac pn, right, for the ping, port 445, and I just did the SNB enum shares at this particular one here. So we notice down here we have IPC, which is a very common built-in share for Windows. But this one's kind of interesting. Look at that. Anonymous. Interesting. So that one we probably want to try to connect to. It looks like anonymous access, you get read-write. So that's pretty interesting. The good thing about something like that is we want to eventually get to the point where we're going to mount a share or mount some sort of share from the victim so we can transfer files back and forth between the two. But let's go ahead and pop into this anonymous one here real quick. So I'm going to come back here to my cheat sheet, and let's see. SMB client is what we're looking for. Okay, here's a good one. So SMB client you can use to connect to it. I'll copy that. I'll change the IP address, but this is the actual command you would use to connect to that particular share. Okay, so let's do that. Let's paste it in, and we're going to change our IP address. Let's go ahead and grab it from TryAcme. All right. There we go. Because it's anonymous, I'm guessing we don't have to put a password in, so I'm just going to hit enter. I'm not going to put any password in. Boom! Look at that. We're in SMB. Very cool. So it uses some basic commands like ls. All right, so we see this log.txt file that's listed here. Excellent. All right. Now, I had done this prior, so let me go over here and let me remove the prior one that I had when I was kind of running it just to make sure it would work. So I'm going to remove that from the root directory. So what we're going to do is we want to get this file and kind of read through it. So we'll say get log.txt. All right, so now we have that. Let's go ahead and Control-C out of there. All right, let's go back and see what they want from us. Let's see. Once you're connected, list the files on the share. What file can you see? Log.txt. That's correct. Let's see. SMB get. We did that one. Okay. What port is FTP running on specifically? Pro FTPD. Now, we're going to assume it's 21 because that's the default standard port. But let's just verify like they're asking from the log.txt file. So I'm going to say cat, which essentially allows me to display the contents of a file here in the terminal. So we'll say log.txt, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm not sure how big the file is, so I'm going to use a pipe symbol, and then I'm going to say more. What that will allow me to do is take a file page by page in case it's like 800 pages long. So I'll hit that. Okay, so let's see. Basic Pro FTP configuration file. It's space. All right, so right here we can see it is indeed using port 21. Let's go ahead and hit Q on that. Ah, all right, cool. Next, let's see what it wants us to do. Earlier Nmap scan, we saw port 111. That's correct, the RPCbind. This is just a server that converts remote procedure calls program number into a universal address that I can use so that I can communicate with the RPC service. So when an RPC service is started, it tells RPCbind the address at which it's listening to, so on and so forth. So we're going to try to enumerate that RPCbind to see if there's something that I can mount to. Now, again, when I was doing this prior and testing, this command would just bonk everything out, and I had to restart the machine here 3 times. So I decided to screw that and just stick with this NFS mount because that's really the meat and potatoes of what we want out of this because we already enumerated the shares. So I went ahead and I ran that command here. So right here you can see, where is it at? Right there. Nmap, TACN, TACPN, port 111 for the RPCbind, and then I did a TAC script equals NFS show mount. Here it is. And down here we see this /var asterisk telling me that this directory is something that we can mount to our machine. This var is on the server, the victim. We should be able to mount to that and be able to go to any directory that's in that var folder, like temp or whatever it may be. So we're going to utilize that later. So keep that in mind. All right, very cool. All right, next we're going to gain access, I guess, with Pro FTP. Is that right? Yep. All right, so they want us to find the version of Pro FTPD and see if there's any exploits. So let's do that. All right, so to see the version of a particular service, one thing you can do is that Nmap scan, which we already know from here, that it is Pro FTPD 1.3.5, but let's just pretend that it didn't show that. We can also use netcat and just connect directly to it, and the FTP server will typically show a banner in that case. So we'll say netcat over to this IP address. And netcat is a tool that I use a lot. It's a Swiss Army knife tool, they say, for hackers. It does a lot of TCP connect, UDP connect. It can do reverse shells. Very cool tool. But this one, we're just doing a direct connect over to that at port 21. So notice the space I put after the IP address. And typically it will show us a banner, just like that, saying that's Pro FTPD 1.3.5. So what you can do is you can look for a exploit specifically for that. Now, out on the internet, there is a site called ExploitDB, and this will have a database of all the latest exploits. Now, you got to be careful when you look for these particular types of sites because there's no honor amongst thieves. And if you go to a run-of-the-mill mom-and-pop type of exploit database up on the site that's maybe on a blogger.blogspot webpage or something like that, there is a possibility that a bad guy will actually upload an exploit for you to use, but in that exploit, it'll actually have a scripting of a backdoor that they'll be able to use to connect to you. So essentially the bad guy is trying to give you an exploit for you to exploit a system, and in the meantime, they also get a backdoor to you. So it's always good to go with well-known sites that vet these scripts. So ExploitDB has people that actually vet through these scripts and read through them to verify there's not, you know, some backdoor that's happening and things like that. Now, to do it in terminal, you don't actually need to go to this website and look for Pro FTPD there. You can actually go, if you're in Kali Linux, and use a tool called Searchsploit. And for that, we'll go ahead and do our Pro FTP. Let's see. Let's just copy and paste the actual one that's over here. So let's look and see if there's any vulnerable versions of this here. All right, so we got 3 different ones that come up, and let's see. So we have remote command execution. We're not going to use any Metasploit today, so let's take a look and see if we can find this. Now, this only gives you a short path to it. It's not the full path. So what I do is I use a command called locate, and I'm looking for that particular file, and there it is. I want to actually look through this and see if there's any information that we can use to help us understand. And this is kind of what sets the script kiddie apart from somebody who actually knows and does well at cybersecurity and hacking. Script kiddies will typically just run an exploit from Metasploit or something like that, or they may not know or understand what is this actually doing. So it's helpful to learn some languages to kind of understand what you're looking at. So this one, I'm just going to go ahead and cat this and take a look at it. It's a Python script, so let's see what it does here. It's pretty short. So import request sys. All right, so if I actually wanted to run the exploit, I could do this here. Let's see what it's doing. Connect to the server. All right, so it's doing this here. Okay, so it looks like the exploit for this particular problem is a misuse of site CPFR and site CPTO. You're probably thinking, player, what the heck are you talking about? Well, this is something here. It's called copy from, and this is called copy to. What it looks like it's doing is it looks like it's able to copy files that's outside of the FTP directory and copy it to a directory of your choice on that machine. Again, it's not copying it off the machine. It's just copying it to another location. Now, something to keep in mind, wasn't there a location that was open and allowing me to mount, right? Remember that? /var, right? So what I could do, essentially, is I could do something like this, where I wanted to copy etc passwd. I can copy that over to var/temp, let's just say, because it allows me, the var asterisk says I can go to any directory within there. So let's try it and see if that's exactly what's going on here. Because, again, you shouldn't be able to get access to stuff outside of the FTP directory, I would think. So, yeah, let's do that. So let's pop on over here. Okay, we're already logged in to the Pro FTPD server here. So let's do site, and then we'll say CPFR. So that would be copy from. Let me just verify. That's the correct spelling. Yep. So if I want to do a copy FR, or I'm sorry, site copy FR in this particular case, I could do the one that was in that script. So I could say /etc/past, oops, we don't need capitals there. And Linux is case sensitive, but I don't know if it's so in this Pro FTPD or not. So I'm saying, let me cat this passwd file. I'm sorry, let me copy it. Okay, there we go. Next, you would then run site CPTO, so you're copying it to a directory. In this case, we know that we want to go to var, and let's go to the temp directory because a lot of times those are writable. So we'll say, oops, what happened? Logged out? Doggone it. All right, well, let's try it again to get into the server. All right, let's try it again. I don't know if it saved what I had, so we'll say site CPFR, and then we're going to do /etc/passwd. Cool. And then we'll say site CPTO, copy to, and then we'll put it in var/temp, and we'll just call it, I don't know, passwd sounds good. Boom, look at that, copy successful. Awesome, so if we were to mount to this folder, we would be able to go ahead and get etc passwd, but I don't know if that will actually do us any good for this one. Let me take a look and see what they're trying to do. So exploits the copy module. Okay, there we go. So site CPFR, that's correct. Well, no, that doesn't. Okay, so it's wanting us to copy Kenobi's private key. So Kenobi must be a user, and he must have a private key there under SSH. So I'm going to go to my attack machine to show you something real quick. So if I do ls tac la like that, you'll see that there is a hidden directory. The reason I did la is to show hidden directories, which starts with a dot. In this case, .ssh would be what I'm looking at. So if I cd over to .ssh and take a look there, let me do it again, ls tac la, I can see that there's a known host. Now, if I actually had created, I haven't used the SSH in this for this yet, but if I had created a public and private key, those would be listed here. So it would say like ID something, and then there would be ID underscore RSA for the private key. So typically, most people that are on Linux will have the ID underscore RSA private key in the SSH directory, the .ssh. So let's go ahead and do our trick here and see if that's the case, if there actually does exist. Kenobi was the guy, I think, right? So we'll say, let me see, I guess we would go to home, right? So that would be site CPFR, and then we'll say /home/Kenobi. And again, we're assuming that there is a .ssh here. We don't know for sure. And if that's the case, .ssh, then it's likely it's called ID underscore RSA for the private key. And I'll explain why we're doing this here in a second. All right, so it looks like it is there. Awesome. So CPTO, and we'll pop that on over to our /var/tmp ID underscore RSA. Awesome. All right, so I don't think we need this anymore. Let's Control C out of that. All right, so what we basically are trying to do is if you want to log in as SSH as a particular user, you either have to know the username and password in that case to log in, or if you're able to grab their private key, you can run an SSH command called SSH tac I, and then that certificate, that private key, then the user's name at whatever IP address, and you won't have to enter any password in. It will just directly connect you in as SSH as that person. That is what we're going to attempt to do here. So we know that var temp ID RSA is what we're doing, but we have to connect to that var. We have to mount that locally. So let me look under here, see if I have one. Okay. Is that the one we want? Let me see here. Yeah, so we want to mount that var directory here. So we use this one. All right, so in order to do that, we actually have to have a folder to mount it to. So let me go back to my attack machine. In this case here, I'm going to look under cd/mnt, which is our mount folder, and see if anything's there. All right, so there is one from a previous one that I've done, so I'm going to remove that. If it allows me to. Looks like it froze up here. All right, so it looks like my machine has frozen up for some reason on that particular command. So let me close, oops, there we go. Now we're back. No, we're not. All right, let's close this window out. I maybe have too many windows open, so let's go back here again. And we'll go to this one. All right, so we're going to try to navigate over to CD mount. We're going to remove /MMT/Kenobi. And it seems like whenever I try my tab key right now, it's locking up. I really don't know what is going on with that. Oh, man, it's a big mess. Let's try it again. /root/Kenobi directly. Oops, I'm sorry, not root. /MNT. And we're going to get rid of that folder. And I'll just say TAC-R just to make sure it's recursive. I don't remember what's in there. And hopefully that will remove it. If not, we may have to restart it again because, again, this machine is really fickle for some reason. And while it's trying to do that, let me try something different. Let me just try mounting to it for a new folder. So in this case, I'm going to say cd/mnt, and we'll go ahead and make a new directory. I will call it Kenobi 2. Awesome. So what we want to do next is we want to be able to mount that particular folder that we know is there, the SMB, what is it called, var, right? So I'm going to grab this command here. This is the typical one you would use for an NFS mount. All right, let's change a few things. First, we're going to get rid of all of this. Actually, we need to get rid of all of it, I guess. I should probably just typed it in. So we'll just say mount. And then here we'll put the IP address right there. And I'm keeping all these mistakes in so you guys can see we're not always perfectly in simpancado, whatever you call it. So we're going to say the :/var, that's the one we want to mount to in this case. And we want to mount it to /MNT/Kenobi 2. Hopefully that works without waiting too long. Awesome. So now that we're under the mount directory, I can go ahead and CD over to Kenobi 2 and do an ls. And we want to go to, what was it, temp? I think it was temp, right? TMP. And let's take a peek. Boom, look at that. So there's that passwd file I had used before, but here is the IDRSA key for Kenobi. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and copy that over to a different folder. So I'm going to make a directory in root. And we'll just call it Kenobi. I'll just say Kenobi 1 in case I have one already made. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the ID_RSA over to root/Kenobi. I'm afraid to use my tab key because that's what seems to be locking everything up. All right, so now we have copied that over there. Let's go ahead and navigate over to root/Kenobi. It's not going to do it for me, is it? There we go. And let's take a peek. Boom, nothing there. Let's see, where did we copy it to? We did copy it to it. ID, RSA, over to root Kenobi. Let's see, oops. Copied ID_RSA /root Kenobi 1. Oh, I'm sorry, Kenobi. I'm all messed up here today. So we're going to navigate over to Kenobi. Oh. There we go. Let's do this again. Copy it over to that directory. Oops. All right. Let's go to what did I call it? Kenobi 2. And it was var temp, right? Yep. I think. Doggone it. Where am I at? Did it drop the mount? I hope not. Nope. Okay. All right. Let's CD over then to temp again. And let's try this again. So we're going to say CP over to, what do we have? Can't remember the name of it now. Let's verify it's in there. Yep. So we're going to say CP, or copy, ID underscore RSA over to /root /Kenobi 1. That was a folder I had made. Very good. Let's try this now again. So root and Kenobi 1. Boom, there it is. All right, so now we actually have that there. It probably would have been easy just to open up the file folder and copy and paste it, right? So now that we have that over here, we know that's the one for Kenobi, the user Kenobi. So in this case, what we're going to do is a command called ssh-tac-i. In this case, we're going to point out the ID underscore RSA that's in this directory. We know the guy's name is Kenobi, and we're going to do @ and the IP address. Okay, so let's copy the IP address there, hit enter, and we're going to say yes, we want to include the fingerprint. All right, so let's see, permissions are to open. So notice here it says these are to open. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and modify that particular one. So I'm going to Control-C out of that, and I'm going to do a command called chmod. What this does is allows me to change the permission sets on a particular file. If I were to look here and do an ls-tac-l, I can see here that IDRSA has permissions right here, where you have read-write for the owner, you have read for this one for group, and read for everybody else. What I want to do is I want to change that permission set. So I'm going to say chmod, we'll go with 600 in this case, and if you look it up online, a lot of times people will say that 600 is typically what they'll use if you get this error. So we'll say chmod that 600, and we'll say ID underscore RSA. What I'm doing is I'm changing the permissions to a numerical version of what you're looking at for read, write, and execute here. Okay, I don't remember all of the number charts, and we don't really need to pull it up right now, but this is one that you would actually run for it. So I'm going to do that, and if you do an ls-tac-l again, you'll see it has actually changed and only given read-write to the user owner and taken away the read access to the other two because it said it was too open. So that's what we're doing. So let's try it again now that we changed that. Give it a second here. Awesome. There you go. So now we got Kenobi and we're in. ID, yep, Kenobi. Very cool. So now that we're actually blasted in as Kenobi, I guess what we can do is we can start looking for flags. So let's do an ls where we're at. Okay, so we have a user.txt, cat user.txt. Awesome. So that, I assume, is the flag they're looking for here. All right, so we did all this mess. We did all this mess here. Kenobi this, yeah, yes. Okay, there we go. Boom. So to answer that question, to get that flag, that's what you would do to get to it from there. Notice how they did the same thing here. They actually used the same technique with the private key and all that. This is actually a lot more guided than I expected. But anyways, we've done that. Everything's good there. Next, let's do some privilege escalation. So privilege escalation comes in a couple different formats. You have privilege escalation where you're trying to go and escalate either horizontal or vertical. If you're doing vertical, that means you're compromising another user account that has the same privileges as you. And it gives you lateral movement as that user with the same permissions that you have. You're just doing it as a different user. So that's one way to do privilege escalation. The second way is horizontal, meaning I am a standard user and I want to elevate to a higher level permission set, such as admin or root in this case here. So we're looking to get root access because we're on Linux and root is top dog. So it looks like we're going to be using the SUID bit. So let me show you what that's all about real quick here. So I'm going to come back over here. Look at that. That thing is still running. Let me close that out. Crazy. I don't know what's going on with that. All right. So the SUID bit would be like if you were on Windows, it'd be equivalent to, I guess, run as admin. If I had a file and I was root and I wanted people to run it as if they were running it as me, so impersonating me essentially, with that particular ability, I would set something called a SUID bit. A good example is passwd. If I were to go ahead and do, if I wanted to change my password in Linux, to do that, I have to have a root privilege to run a function called passwd to do the actual password change. Now, it doesn't make me root, and it doesn't necessarily give me like sudo, for instance. It just says this application can run, anybody can run it as if it were the root user. Okay, and you can check those with ls-tac-l. So I'm trying to remember where passwd is. So let me try to locate it because I can't remember. Holy smokes. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to run a command to find all of files that are set with the SUID bit, and then I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So let me go back over here to my sweet cheat sheet, and I'm going to go down to privilege escalation. And we're going to run this command. So it does a find, which is a built-in find tool that's in Linux. It says here with the slash, says start at the top of the file system. Start your search from there. And we're going to be looking for anything that has a permission, perm, of 4,000. So in this case here, that would indicate a SUID bit being set, because we have read, we have write, we have execute, but we also have SUID, which is an S. And then the TAC type here would be F, which is file. We're looking for a file. And this 2:dev null stuff is basically just saying anything that is not relevant to what we're doing, like errors or debug information, send it to the garbage collector. That's it. That's all that's for. It's just to have a nice, good-looking output. That's all it's for. All right, so let's go ahead and pop that bad boy in, and let's see if we can find this, some applications that run SUID. So I'm going back to the Kenobi one, and we're going to go ahead and run that and see if they have anything on there that's worth noting here. And then I'll show you kind of what that SUID bit would look like with the ls-tac-l, because this will tell me passwd. There it is, user bin passwd. So if I said ls-tac-l /usr/bin/passwd, you'll see here that in its place of the executable portion of it is an S, saying that this owner, right, is given the ability to run this file as root, as the person. So that's what we're kind of looking for. We're looking for anything that's out of place here that we can try to leverage to do privilege escalation, maybe pop a shell like binsh or something like that as root. So most of this looks pretty legit, normal stuff. That's normal. That's normal. That looks pretty normal. Okay, so this looks odd. Okay, that one's odd. Another one that's typically used, and you'll see it in one of my older videos, previous videos in the series where I used an Nmap. Somebody had an Nmap in here, and I was able to run it as root and do the interactive mode and get shell that way. This one's an odd one. I'm not sure what that is. So let's run that and see what the heck that thing does. So let's copy the selection and let's paste it. Oh, interesting. Status check, kernel version. Let's do number 2, kernel version. Let's see what this does. All right, so what this tells me is that it's passing a command whenever you pick a choice. In this case, the kernel version is uname tac r, uname tac a, uname tac r. I think it's uname tac r. So what it's telling me is this application is scripted in a manner to say whenever you enter a choice in and it's number 2, then run uname tac r or whatever the command is. Now, a way to check to see what's going on behind the scenes, how this program is running, is you can use a tool called strings. Strings will go ahead and, well, string out, pull all the strings out of an actual executable so you can kind of view the wording that's going on there. Sometimes you'll find passwords in there. So let's use that on this particular executable. So we'll say strings /usr /bin/menu, and let's see what we have here. Let's scroll up here. So we're looking for that menu. Okay, right here. So we're looking for the menu option. So this is the part, and you can see this is all kind of weird nonsense. This is all part of string readable stuff that's in the code of the application running. So we can see here that this is the portion. Enter your choice. Okay, right there. Uname tac r. Now, interestingly, look at this right here, curl. So there's something they call absolute and relative path. If you're not familiar with that in Linux, if I were to say, let me see if I can explain this fairly easily here. So let me clear this real quick here. So if I were to go, let me go back here to, let me do ls. So if I'm in this location here, and let's say I have a folder right here, try hack me, okay? and I want to go to that. I can just say cd try hack me, and I don't need a slash or slash root or any of that kind of stuff, because I'm actually in the root directory, in the same directory that that folder is in, and it will let me go to it. Okay. Now, there's another folder here. I'll just say Pentest Lab. It's in the root folder. It's not in this folder. Okay. So Pentest Lab is not in this folder that I'm currently at. So if I wanted to say cd Pentest Lab, it's not going to let me because it doesn't recognize it. Okay. In this case, what I'm in right now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do a full absolute path. So I need to point to where is Pentest Lab. Well, it's actually in the root directory, so I have to start with that. And notice the slash I put. That's the top of the file system. Okay. So I say slash root slash Pentest Lab, and no problem, because I made an absolute path. Okay. Now let me go back. cd ... will go back one directory. We're actually, yeah. So if I try to go to try hack me again, now you remember I couldn't go to Pentest Lab because that wasn't one of my folders, but OWASP is a folder in this one. So I don't need the absolute path. I just say cd OWASP. See the difference? So the actual curl command, so if I locate curl, and I don't know how many it's going to pump out here, so I'm just going to say more. So if I actually try to locate curl, it's under USR bin curl, right? What's interesting is they don't actually list this in the actual script for that executable. What that tells me is it's just looking for the word curl. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more high level, I guess you could say, but I'll try to explain it as the best I can. There's also something that they call paths, right? The environment variables, as it were. So if I were to say echo $path, this is on my machine, okay? This is not the Kenobi machine. So if I said echo $path, you'll see here USR local is in there, SBin, USR local bin, USR SBN, here's bin, right? So whenever I call curl, it's going to just go ahead and use that /bin if it sees it there. However, if we actually went to a folder on Kenobi, let's say, I don't know, let's say temp. Okay, so if we go to like temp, see if there's anything in there. This is not in the environment variable here, I'm guessing. Let's double check. So we'll say echo $, and path. Don't forget Linux is case sensitive. All right, so you'll notice in here we have home Kenobi bin, all this other stuff, but we don't see here at all is /temp. Okay, we don't see that at all listed in there. So what we're going to do is this. Under my privilege escalation, what I'm going to do is this. Just let me try to explain it here. Is I'm going to go ahead and echo a bash, not a bash shell, a regular shell, sh, into a file called curl. Because that script menu is not actually calling the absolute path USR bin /curl, I'm going to go ahead and make this curl, and I'm going to set temp as a path. Therefore, my goal is that when I run menu, it'll pull that curl command and not the one under USR bin, because the USR bin curl will do the regular curl command. My temp curl will pop bin sh. Now don't forget, this particular menu application that we're trying to screw with runs as SUID, which means it runs as root. What does that tell you? That means that I will be able to run bin sh as root, which means I should get a root shell. If that's the case, pop, 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 another server drop, and we can see what happens. So now that I've kind of explained that, let's go ahead and see if it will work. So we'll come over here and we'll let go bin sh over to curl. Next, we'll go ahead and give all permissions to it. So we'll do a chmod, which will give all read, write, and execute to all the root, the group, and everybody else for that particular command curl. Awesome. Then next what we'll do is we'll export it. So we'll make it essentially an environment variable that would be able to see. So let's export that right there, path. Now let's go ahead and do our echo $path. And as you recall up here, right, this is what we had originally. Let's see what we have now. Look at that. Boom, pop, loving it right there, /TMP. Isn't that awesome? So now that we actually have that, what we can do is run /usr/bin/menu. And I guess we could just say, what was it? 2. Oh, wait a minute. Let me think here. I'm trying to remember which one did the curl. Was it number 1? Yeah, I think it was number 1. Let's try that again. I think it was number 1. Number 2 did the uname tagvar. Okay, there we go. So, all right. So status check did the curl command, which called our temp command for curl, not the USR bin. So let's see. ID. Boom. Pop, pop, pop. Another server drop. So yeah, now we can see that we got root. So hopefully you saw how that worked. Let's just break it down real quick again. I took the curl command and I put it in. Put the bin sh into the curl command, and I put it in the temp directory, and then I added the temp directory to the environment variable path with the hopes that when I ran this status check, which in turn ran curl tac capital I something or other, not the full absolute path, I ran that and everything was good on that. So let's go ahead and cd over to root, and there we go. Let's do an ls, and look at that, cat root.txt. Boom. There it is. All right. Whew. That was a laborious one, but I think that was all it asked for. Yep, that's it. Whew. So that was a little bit more challenging than the other ones, and we had a few hiccups here and there, but I'll leave all the mistakes in because, why not? I ain't scared. So hopefully you enjoyed that. We learned quite a few things in that one there. We learned a lot of stuff about the privilege escalation. And if you do run this particular one here on TryHackMe, do be aware you may have to restart it a few times if some things start hanging up. You saw it here. I didn't remove any of that from the video because I wanted you to see, it does hang things up. It's not very stable for some reason. I'm not really sure why, if it has to do with the SMB or not. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you had any other questions about it, I'm also going to post in the same menu area on my website, the actual walkthrough with commands and stuff that you can kind of read through. All right. So until next time, let's just keep on popping, baby. Peace out, players.